psychologist, Dr. Mara Karpel of Dr. Mara Karpel and Your Golden Years. I hope you enjoy this informative interview and many more to come on my program. If you're just joining us, this is Dr. Mara Karpel and Your Golden Years on blogtalkradio.com and on drmarakarpel.com. And joining me right here in the studio is the founder and CEO of Storyhouse. Kathryn Gonzales is here to talk about this wonderful company, preserving your family's stories. So welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you. It's always so nice to be here.
It's great to have you back. It's been a couple of years.
I know, and somehow it doesn't really feel that long.
No,
but
it doesn't.
Time flies, right?
So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm from Austin, actually. Which
One of those few people born and raised.
Unicorns, yeah. So I'm from Austin. I have sort of a background working in sort of tech startups. That was sort of how I got my start. And I studied journalism at UT. And so I always had this desire to use that skill somehow. And my work took me to New York for a few years, and I was enjoying living there, but not necessarily super fond of the work that I was doing. I didn't really think I was doing work that was impactful, ultimately. And so I was kind of struggling with the next step, and I decided ultimately, a friend of mine sort of planted the seed. Was like, you really love the elderly community, and you have this background in journalism, and why not help people share their stories, gather their stories. And it was just one of those moments where, all things converged, and I sort of had chills thinking that that's something I could dedicate my life to. And
that's how you know that it's right.
Exactly, yeah. And, working in a space where, was sort of working for companies where the idea was to ultimately, sell and move on to the next thing, I knew right away that if I were to start a business, it should be something that I wanted to do, indefinitely. And so that's always how I felt about Storyhouse. I kind of put New York on pause, and I moved back to Austin. Well, I sort of came back to Austin temporarily at first, because my network is here, my family is here, and most importantly because this a friend that I made living in East Austin, I guess now a decade ago. He was 95 when I was living in New York, and we've been friends at that point for like 4 or maybe 5 years. And he just he adopted me as his granddaughter, and I, called him grandpa, and he was just a really close friend. And I knew that I wanted to get his story. So even if I didn't really launch this as a business, I at least wanted to get his story. And that process was so rewarding, and, and the timing was impeccable. We finished the project just a few weeks before days. Crazy, we finished everything within days of him passing, but he got to see everything. And so just to see his reaction and his family, it's so funny, I just visited with his daughter, who's become a really good friend of mine, and I got to see how much joy it brought them and how much comfort to know that they had his story. And he was an ordinary hero kind of guy, right? Just, sweetheart of a man, but didn't think he had a story that was hugely impactful or important. But of course, I think everyone has a story.
Everyone has a story.
Yeah. So that's sort of the long and the short of how I started it and why.
If you're just joining us, this is Dr. Mara Karpel and Your Golden Years, and I'm here with Kathryn Gonzales, the CEO and founder of Storyhouse. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what Storyhouse is and what you do? You gave us kind of a picture a little bit with this story, but I know that your services are very broad.
Yeah. So Storyhouse, our focus, our kind of core mission is to preserve stories that are at risk of being lost. And that can mean any number of things, right? Because again, as you said, everyone has a story to tell. So we are most passionate about community stories and personal, family stories that are, you know, around a topic or that focus on a person who right now has the story fresh, but you know, again, who are at risk of maybe losing that to memory loss or any number of things, right? And in the case of some of the community stories we worked on, it's sort of, you know, people who are being displaced from their neighborhood or you know, who are going through just a transition that, and where the stories may not exist the way in their true sort of form at a certain point. So, but typically families hire us to come in and interview the matriarch and the patriarch of the family.
So the elders.
Yes, exactly. And so we specialize in long form interviews. Before that, we've really gotten to know the family. So we know the topics to cover. We know sort of who they are, who the person is that we're interviewing. So we go in and we conduct a long form interview. It's typically video, but we can do audio only if that's what the family chooses. And then we turn the interviews into either like it's sort of what reads like a mini documentary, and that's our portrait video service. And depending on how the family is going to use the service, we either you know, it could be anywhere between a 5 and a 20-minute video, right? That we produce. But then, you know, of course, we met with the person and interviewed them for potentially 4 or 5 hours, and so we have all of these incredible stories and all of this great footage that we end up putting into what we call a video vault, and that the family receives that as well. So it's sort of this library of stories in addition to you know, this kind of curated, like, again, what reads like a mini documentary, and that might be something that the family displays at a family function, a 50th wedding anniversary, or something like that, birthday party or something like that. Right. So that's one service that we offer. But then, of course, there's something to be said about the tangible, about the physical, right? And I think especially, I know my generation seems to be longing for the physical, and then older generations are so used to that.
That's what they're used to.
Yeah, and so it's just this nice way to present a story. We're usually able to take a long form interview like that 4 or 5 hour interview and transcribe it and turn it into a narrative that is that person's story, and it reads well. Like, you can consume more of a story in book form, I think, than, you know, 4 hour long video, right? And so we in the process we digitize families' photos. Sometimes we digitize their home videos, which you know about. Sometimes we are able to get recipes and old military documents, and we take all of this information and make sure that it's digitized properly so that it withstands the test of time, so that these important things get passed on. Yeah. But also it brings their story to life in either the video and or the book, right? So we try to sort of use this multimedia approach to telling stories.
Very nice.
So that's kind of the gist of, those are the 2 core services, portrait video and the portrait book. They can be combined or used, or sort of, you can do them independent.
And I've seen the books.
They're beautiful, I know, and they've actually gotten even better since you saw them.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really proud of the books. We underwent a redesign recently, and they're stunning.
And they include photographs
and documents. In some cases, and recently we did actually a post-mortem story. So someone had interviewed, this you will relate to, a client of ours, and had interviewed her father when she was in college. And he had these incredible stories of Hungary. He grew up in Hungary, and from what I can gather was maybe royalty somehow or another, like lived in a castle and just had incredible, I think that they were actually more related to the church, but anyway, just really beautiful, incredible stories that the family, you know, knew were important, and had the foresight to interview early on. And he passed away, I think, almost a decade or more ago, but they had this interview, and we they had already had the interview digitized, but they're like, what do we do with this? This is sort of this 2 hour kind of clunky interview that his daughter conducted when she was in college or something, right? So it was just, it didn't flow. It couldn't have been turned into like easily like an audio story. So what we decided to do was transcribe it all, and we turned it into this book. And they had saved all of these report cards and like just
Nice.
bizarre documents from, we don't actually even know what the documents are from Hungary, but we digitized all that, and it reads so well in the book, you know, just like pairs beautifully with all of his stories. So
very nice.
yeah, so it's really fun when we can get our hands on things like that.
And I know that, you know, when people don't want that full package, you can
Yes.
do. So for listeners that don't know, Kathryn did some work for my family, taking, I just, on the spur of the moment, did an interview of my dad with my smartphone about 2.5 years ago. And Kathryn was on the show, and I said, you know, what do I do with that video? And then when she said that she could save it and actually upload it to a family website that my whole family could view, I decided to then interview my mom on the next visit back to New York at home. And then we got a hold of their wedding video from 1952, which was in color, and we put it all with some pictures as well.
Yeah, that was a really fun project because, you know, even though it was a phone interview, it was really cool to hear their stories independent of each other, and then to see it, you know, see their perspectives was really sweet. And then the old wedding video was so charming and just very nostalgic.
And I'm so glad that I did it, because my dad has since passed, and now I could go back and see these videos.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I feel about Grandpa Brooks, right? I get to visit his website, and we can do these kind of custom family websites. And in your case, you know, one that's password protected in case you just want it to be for the family, immediate family. And another service actually that I don't know, we didn't actually have available the last time we spoke, but what we started to notice, so we added a digitization arm to the business, because when we were going and interviewing families, we were finding photos and videos in all sorts of states of potential, you know, corrosion, and you know, especially photos. Photos especially are temperamental, and if they're not cared for properly, if they're in a, you know, sort of a dank attic or something, you run the risk of them, you know, fading and degrading. And actually, and this is like sort of my PSA, is, you know, my parents had a lot of they were called magnetic albums.
Yes, I remember those.
There's nothing magnetic about them.
I used to have those.
They were sticky albums.
Yes.
They're sticky, right? They had this
sticky.
glue. Well, that glue is, in a lot of cases, contains acid, and it yellows photos. And not to mention, you know, depending on the quality of the glue and a number of things, a lot of times they adhere to the photos. You can never get them off. So I always encourage clients to get their photos to safety, just like get them out of there if they can, peel them out. And there's some tricks to doing that. We have a couple of blog posts about that at yourstoryhouse.com. But more importantly, so what we found though is that families were like, well, we've got all these photos that we want to include in the video. We don't really, I mean, they're sort of all over the place though. So then we added this service. It's more of like an hourly kind of service. So folks can hire one of our archivists to go in and just, you know, organize and file and digitize photos. So that's something that it came about because we saw the need. But then so we married that service, that specific, you know, digitization of photo service, with what I think is one of my favorite offerings, is that we sit down once we've digitized everything. We sort of work with the family to curate, say, 20 or 30 photos that are kind of the most impactful photos. And then we sit with the client or the family, or maybe even multiple family members, and we have them tell stories about what they remember about the photo. So who's in it, where was it taken, and just what is the story behind the photo.
Right.
And that ends up being just such an impactful. Think about like StoryCorps, you know, the audio stories on the radio, paired with this visual, right? That's like this.
And then I remember you telling me that you could then roll over the picture.
Yes, to play the audio or to show or to play different.
To play the audio.
Yeah. So it's like an audio story gallery is what we call the service. So it feels like that. Like you can, and so then we've got all sorts of potential ideas around, well, how impactful it is. Think about it. Like if you have multiple family members, like, oh, I remember that photo also. And from my perspective, this was this holiday and it was beautiful and whatever. So it's really sweet. That's it's a fun activity for us. And it pairs really well with our video service because sometimes we don't know who's in the photos, and it's just better if as long as we're gonna have a conversation about who's in the photos, we might as well record that as well because it tends to be, it's valuable information. So I say we do that. The sweet spot is a few photos, but of course we can do that with any number of photos, right? And then the other thing that you may not know about is we sort of stepped back and said, well, what's a great introduction to Storyhouse, right? Like what's a way that we can get people thinking about their family stories and have them leave with a memento that's valuable and something tangible that they can again pass down. And so what we decided to do are what are called heirloom recipe prints. So families can find a family recipe and then maybe a photo of that chef or a photo that represents the chef. And then we produce these really beautiful prints that are either on canvas or that we frame. And it's something that the family can hang in their kitchen. It's a really great like Mother's Day gift or birthday gift, Father's Day too. And so that's a really fun project for us. And it's a great introduction to Storyhouse. People just start thinking about their family stories. So so that's really fun, and that's kind of our that's sort of like our $100 entry to the storytelling component of.
So do you do this for people just here in Austin, Texas, or can people be all over the country?
Yeah, no, we do it anywhere. And in fact, so right now we have sort of a satellite team that we dispatch in cases where folks are out of state, but there are cost implications with that. And so we're 2016 should be a big year for Storyhouse. We're hoping to open some satellite offices in key areas so that we can just serve those folks directly. Yeah, so I'll be traveling around a lot, I think, this year and next, getting things like that set up. So it'll be fun. But that's the goal, is to ultimately have offices everywhere so we can easily serve them. But yes, don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested in our services, even if you're not in Texas.
Have you found that families are really, like, this has a really positive effect on families?
Oh, yeah.
On this?
Yeah, if you think about how impactful it is for someone, especially for an elderly person, to know that their family thinks that their story is important enough that it should be captured. I think that just opens up so much space for the family to have, dialogue and to just be close around, again, I think storytelling just brings people together. So, and sometimes I think you can hear a story and not really hear it. Maybe you're I can think about some of the stories my grandmother told, and especially when you're younger, you just don't really absorb it all or appreciate it all. So this really gives people an opportunity to have that forever, so that when you are at the moment, like right now is an opportune time in my life that I would love to sit and reflect on my grandmother's stories, but they're no longer around, and it's so yeah, I think I've seen it bring families closer together.
Yeah, I remember I used to say to my dad that he should write a book about his life, and he had so many interesting stories. And he would say, "Well, nobody's going to want to read the book." Right. I said, "But we would want to read the book." So I can see where I'm so happy that at least I got a little snippet.
Absolutely.
I have like a 20-minute video of him telling a story.
Absolutely.
And really, special story about how he met my mother.
I know, it's so sweet. Ugh.
So
sweet.
I think, if I knew about this sooner, it would have been great, because I could have gotten many of his stories. You
Absolutely.
wouldn't have had to write a book.
Right.
You don't have to write a book.
Right. We'll write it for you later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just do an interview, and it will become a book.
That's
a video. The video, having his face and his voice.
Exactly.
Is very special.
And that's why we sort of encourage people to do the video service, because
again, you can do so much with that.
Mm-hmm.
You can turn it into just audio. You can transcribe it and turn it into words on a page, right? So, and you don't have to do it all at once. But if you have the interview, you have the interview. It's huge, right? It's a great, it's a great starting point.
It's
so.
huge. So, if people are interested in your services, how can they contact you?
So the best way to find us is, well, our website is yourstoryhouse.com. And also you can call, our phone number is 512-296-8752. If you want to just have a phone consultation. And then our email is info@yourstoryhouse.com. And on all social media, we're at Your Storyhouse. So follow our Instagram account. It's really fun. That's sort of my favorite of our social media outlets. But we're on Twitter and Facebook as well.
And for those of you who didn't get your pen and paper out in time, I will be posting all of these contact links and email addresses on my web post about this show later tonight. So on my website.
Great.
Okay. So, all right. So 2016 is going to be a big year for Storyhouse.
I think so. I think there's some game-changing things coming down the pipeline. It'll be fun. Yeah,
and one thing that I'm excited about that you didn't mention is that when people do this, even if they start with something small on a website, you can always add to it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm getting stuff together for you to add to.
Yeah, I know.
Pictures to archive on the website.
It's so great. I think the biggest testament to our work is that, most of our clients have, maybe they'll use this for mom, the mom and dad on the husband's side, and then they'll come back to us a few months later and say, we love that we did that, and it was so wonderful for the family. We want to do this for now, the other side of the family. And so that's a huge testament to our work and why we do it, It's really pretty great.
It's wonderful, and I'm going to bring some more stuff to you.
I love it.